The arena was huge. Thousands of aliens filled the seats, making sounds that ranged from roars to whistles to electronic beeps. Commander Vexthor stood in the preparation room, looking at his reflection in the polished metal wall. He was 7 feet tall, covered in black scales that looked like armor. 4 powerful arms hung at his sides, each one capable of breaking steel. His race, the Kralliks, came from a world where gravity was twice as strong as Earth's. They were born warriors. Vexthor looked at the screen showing information about his next opponent. A human female named Kate Sullivan. He laughed, a deep rumbling sound. Another human, he thought to himself. This would be easy. 3 years ago, Vexthor had fought a human man from a colony planet called New Texas. The human had been strong and determined, but simple in his fighting style. He had charged forward like an angry bull, trying to overpower Vexthor with raw strength. It had not worked. Vexthor had studied the human's patterns, waited for the right moment, and struck. The fight had lasted less than 5 minutes. Since that day, Vexthor believed he understood humans. They were strong for their size, yes. They came from a dangerous world and had good endurance, but they were predictable. They fought with emotion instead of strategy. They were easy to beat once you figured out their simple patterns. Krill, his trainer, walked over. Krill was a Venth, a species that looked like walking skeletons. They were not fighters but strategists. Krill had helped Vexthor win dozens of battles. This human is from Earth itself, Krill said in his thin voice. Not a colony. Her name is Kate Sullivan. Military background, special operations, but nothing we have not seen before. Vexthor waved one hand dismissively. It does not matter if she is from Earth or a colony. Humans all fight the same way. They are passionate but not sophisticated. They lack the discipline of truly advanced warrior races. I have defeated Vraxian war chiefs. I have beaten Thorkin berserkers who could tear apart a tank with their bare hands. I have subdued Mandorian shock troops trained from birth to kill. This human woman will be no different. Krill nodded, though there was something uncertain in his expression. Still, Commander, perhaps we should review her combat footage. There is no need, Vexthor said. I know what I will see. A human trying to match strength with strength. A human relying on endurance and determination. These are admirable qualities, but they are not enough against a true warrior. The door opened. It was time. Vexthor walked through the tunnel toward the arena floor. The sound of the crowd grew louder with each step. 70,000 beings from hundreds of different worlds, all here to watch him fight. He had performed here many times before. The arena was his home. He stepped onto the sand and raised all 4 arms. The crowd roared. They knew him. They loved him. Vexthor, the undefeated champion. 147 wins. 0 losses. He had beaten the best warriors from every dangerous world in the known galaxy. Across the arena, a small figure emerged from the opposite tunnel. Kate Sullivan was not impressive at first glance. She stood maybe 5.5 feet tall. Her brown hair was pulled back into a simple braid. She wore the standard arena combat suit, which showed she had a lean, athletic build, but nothing extraordinary. She looked tiny compared to Vexthor. The commander studied her as she walked to her starting position. She moved smoothly with control. She did not rush. She did not show off for the crowd. She simply walked to her mark and began stretching, doing simple exercises that looked almost like meditation. Look at her, Vexthor thought. She is so small. She does not even have the muscle mass of the last human I fought. This will be over quickly. Perhaps too quickly. The crowd will be disappointed. The arena announcer, a floating ball of energy called a Zephyrite, began speaking in multiple languages at once. It introduced both fighters, listed their records, explained the rules. Vexthor barely listened. He had heard it all before. The rules were simple and had not changed in centuries. The arena floor could shift and change, creating different terrains at random times. No weapons were allowed. No killing was allowed. The fight continued until one fighter was knocked unconscious, surrendered, or could not continue. Medical teams with advanced healing technology stood ready nearby. Vexthor settled into his fighting stance. He distributed his weight evenly on his powerful legs. His 4 arms moved through their ready positions. Each arm could strike with enough force to dent the hull of a spaceship. He was ready. Kate Sullivan stood still. She did not take a fighting stance. Her hands hung relaxed at her sides. Her breathing was slow and steady. She looked calm, almost bored. For a moment, Vexthor felt confused. Why was she not preparing? Was this some kind of mind game? Was she trying to make him overconfident? If so, it would not work. He was already confident because he had earned that confidence through victory after victory. The countdown began. 10 seconds. 9. 8. The crowd's noise grew louder. 7. 6. 5. Vexthor's muscles tensed, ready to explode forward. 4. 3. 2. Kate still had not moved into a fighting stance. 1. A bell chimed, pure and clear, cutting through the noise. Vexthor launched himself forward like a missile. His strategy was simple and effective. Close the distance fast. Use his forearms to overwhelm the opponent with multiple attacks at once. Use his greater reach and strength to control the fight. End it quickly and decisively. His first punch came from his upper right arm, aimed at Kate's head. His second punch came from his lower left arm, aimed at her body. His third arm swept low, trying to hook her legs. His fourth arm was ready to strike wherever she dodged. Kate moved. She did not block. She did not try to match his strength. She simply moved. It was a small movement, economical and precise. She shifted her body slightly to the side and forward at the same time. Vexthor's first punch missed her face by inches. His second punch hit nothing but air. His leg sweep found empty space. Before he could reset his position, he felt 2 sharp impacts on his lower back. Pain shot up his spine. Not serious pain, but unexpected pain. His neural system sent warning signals. Something was wrong. Vexthor spun around fast, faster than most beings his size could move. But Kate was already gone. She had not retreated defensively. She had repositioned to a new angle. Her face showed no emotion. She looked like she was studying him, analyzing him. The crowd's noise changed. Confusion mixed with excitement. This was not what they expected. This was not what anyone expected. Vexthor felt the first small touch of doubt creep into his mind. He pushed it away. It was just luck. One successful dodge meant nothing. The fight had barely started. He had 4 arms, superior strength, superior reach, and over 20 years of combat training. She had gotten lucky for a few seconds. Nothing more. He attacked again, this time more carefully. He used his forearms to create a web of strikes. Attacks coming from multiple angles at different speeds. It should have been impossible to avoid all of them. Kate slipped through his attacks like water flowing through fingers. She was targeting specific points on his body, his joints, the connections between his upper and lower arms, the soft spots in his natural armor. She struck and moved, never staying in one place long enough for him to counter. Vexthor felt sweat forming on his scales. His breathing was getting heavier. How was this happening? She was so small, she should not be able to move that fast. She should not know where to strike. For the first time in many years, Vexthor felt something he had almost forgotten. He felt doubt. Real doubt. This human was not fighting like the last one. She was not trying to match his strength. She was fighting as if she already knew how to beat him, as if she had studied him more than he had studied her. And the worst part, the truly concerning part, was that she was not even breathing hard yet. The crowd sensed it too. The undefeated champion was in trouble. Real trouble, and the fight had only just begun. 5 minutes had passed since the fight began. Vexthor was breathing hard. Each breath made a hissing sound through his mandibles. Sweat covered his scales. His certainty was crumbling like a sandcastle hit by waves. Kate Sullivan moved through his defenses again. This time she landed an elbow strike to a nerve cluster beneath his primary shoulder joint. His upper right arm went numb. He could not feel it. He could not move it. Panic started to rise in his chest. Impossible, he growled. He switched to a defensive stance, all 4 arms up to protect himself. But 3 of his arms were not enough. Kate was too fast, too precise, too knowledgeable about where to strike. The crowd had completely changed their energy now. They had expected to see the great champion destroy another challenger in minutes. Instead, they were watching something they had never seen before. The undefeated Vexthor was being systematically taken apart by a human half his size. Kate finally spoke. Her voice was calm and carried across the arena through the translation field. You said you fought a human before. One human. From a colony world where they had been settled for maybe 2 generations. She circled him slowly, her eyes never leaving his center of mass. Do you know how long humans have been fighting on Earth? Vexthor did not answer. He was too busy trying to track her movement, trying to predict where she would strike next. His tactical computer was feeding him data, showing probability patterns, but nothing made sense. Nothing accounted for the way she moved. Thousands of years, Kate continued. She ducked under a desperate swing from his lower left arm. We have been perfecting the art of hurting each other since before we discovered fire. Every culture on Earth developed their own ways to fight. Chinese kung fu that goes back thousands of years. Japanese jiu-jitsu refined over centuries of warfare. Filipino Kali designed specifically to fight armored opponents. Brazilian techniques that came from blending multiple continents. Israeli Krav Maga created for real combat situations. She moved again. This time Vexthor could not track her at all. She seemed to disappear from his view, and then suddenly she was behind him. She swept his legs using a technique that used his own weight and momentum against him. He crashed to the arena floor. Hard. The impact knocked the air from his lungs. He had never been knocked down in the arena before. Never. Not once in 147 fights. The crowd exploded. Aliens were standing up. Some were shouting. Others were making distress calls. The betting systems were going crazy, recalculating odds that had seemed certain just minutes ago. Vexthor rolled and got back to his feet. His pride hurt more than his body. Though medical sensors were already showing stress damage in his muscles and joints, he looked at Kate. She was standing a safe distance away, still not breathing hard, still looking completely calm. Your species is impressive, Kate said. She maintained her distance but never relaxed her guard. You evolved on a harsh world. You developed natural weapons, natural armor. You are stronger than me. You are faster over short distances. You have 4 arms. By all logical analysis, you should win this fight easily. Vexthor charged again. This time he abandoned all strategy. If he could not outthink her, he would overwhelm her with pure aggression. He unleashed every technique he knew. Combinations that had defeated legendary warriors. Strikes that could shatter reinforced barriers. Everything he had. Kate met his assault not with strength but with precision. Every one of her movements served multiple purposes. She dodged one strike while positioning herself to counter another. She redirected his force back against him. She found tiny gaps in his defense that should not have existed. But here is what you did not understand about humans, Kate said. Her voice never rose above a normal speaking level, even as she fought. We are not a warrior species because we are strong. We are a warrior species because we are smart. We adapt, we learn. We take what works from everywhere and make it better. She caught his upper right arm in a joint lock. It should have been impossible given their size difference. But she used leverage and angles and body mechanics that had been perfected over thousands of years. Vexthor felt the joint strain to its breaking point. He had to tap the floor 3 times, the signal to release the hold. Another first in his career. He had never tapped out before. I have trained in 14 different human martial arts, Kate explained. She released the hold immediately when he tapped, then flowed into a throwing technique. Vexthor found himself flying through the air and landing hard on the sand again. Boxing for punching, Muay Thai for elbows and knees, wrestling for takedowns, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for ground fighting, Judo for throws, Sambo for complete combat. And those are just the ones we teach in competitions. Vexthor struggled to stand. His breathing was labored now. His body temperature was rising too fast. The arena's environmental controls were working to keep him cool, but it was not enough. How was this possible? He was the one from the high-gravity world. He was the one who should have superior endurance. Then I studied alien combat forms, Kate continued. She was not even breathing hard, not even slightly winded. Phyrexian war arts, Thorkin impact techniques, Mandorian grappling systems. I studied them not to use them, but to understand how to counter them. Because that is what humans do. We learn from everyone. We analyze everyone, and then we figure out how to beat them. She attacked with sustained aggression for the first time in the fight. Vexthor found himself purely on defense. Her strikes came from angles he did not know existed. She exploited weaknesses in his body that he did not know he had. She targeted the nerve clusters where his upper and lower arms connected to his torso, disrupting his coordination. She struck at the base of his skull where Kralix have a vulnerable spot in their respiratory system. She swept his legs in patterns that accounted for his 4-legged stance. A terrible realization hit Vexthor like a physical punch. She had studied his species, not just watched videos of his fights. She had studied Kralix anatomy, movement patterns, fighting tendencies, physiological weaknesses. While he had dismissed her as just another human, she had treated him as a problem to be solved, a puzzle to be figured out. "You know what the scary part is?" Kate asked. She caught him in a submission hold that combined elements from at least 3 different fighting styles, adapted perfectly for his alien body structure. Vexthor struggled, but every movement only made the hold tighter. "I am not even the best human fighter. I am just the one who volunteered to prove a point today." Vexthor felt his consciousness starting to fade. The hold was cutting off blood flow to his brain. He had 2 choices: tap out and surrender, or pass out and lose consciousness. For a warrior who had never submitted, who had never even considered the possibility of surrender, the choice should have been impossible. But as the arena started to spin and Kate's words echoed in his mind, he understood something important. Pride was not worth permanent injury, and more importantly, he had been wrong. Completely, fundamentally, catastrophically wrong about what made humans dangerous. His hand moved almost by itself. He tapped the arena floor 3 times, the universal signal of submission. The hold released instantly. Kate stepped back and offered him her hand to help him up. There was no mockery in the gesture, just sportsmanship. Vexthor stared at the offered hand for a long moment. Then he took it. Her grip was firm and strong, much stronger than her small size suggested. The arena had gone completely silent. 70,000 beings were processing what they had just witnessed. The undefeated champion had been defeated, not by luck, not by chance, but by superior skill and knowledge. Then slowly the applause began. It was not the bloodthirsty roar they had started with. It was something different, something deeper. Respect, recognition that they had witnessed something historic, something that would change how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. Vexthor stood there, his hand still in Kate's grip, and realized that his defeat here would send ripples across the entire galaxy. Every species that had dismissed humans as just another primitive race would have to reconsider. Every military strategist would have to recalculate their assumptions. Every warrior who thought they understood combat would have to think again. The humans had sent a message today, and Vexthor had been the messenger, whether he wanted to be or not. The medical bay under the arena was filled with amazing technology. Regeneration pods hummed softly as they healed injuries from the day's fights. Medical scanners floated through the air like small silver fish, checking wounds and broken bones. The bay smelled clean, like a hospital, but with a faint metallic scent that came from alien medicine. Vexthor sat on a large examination table designed for beings his size. His massive body looked smaller somehow, even though he had not actually shrunk. Medical scanners moved around him in circles, cataloging every bruise, every strained muscle, every stressed joint. A vent doctor reviewed the information on a holographic display. "Nothing permanent," the doctor said in his thin, reedy voice. "You will be completely recovered in 6 hours. Though I must say I have never seen this exact pattern of injuries on a Kralix before. Your opponent clearly knew our anatomy very well." Vexthor barely heard the words. His mind was still in the arena, replaying every moment of the fight. Every mistake he had made, every assumption that had betrayed him, every moment where his confidence had blinded him to reality. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Kate Sullivan walked in. She was no longer wearing her combat suit. Instead, she wore simple civilian clothes. Her minor injuries had already been treated. She walked with the same controlled movement she had shown in combat, but there was no arrogance in her manner. "No gloating, Commander Vexthor," she said. She bowed her head slightly, a gesture of respect that existed in many cultures across the galaxy. "I wanted to check on you before the official ceremony." "That was a good fight." "A good fight," Vexthor repeated. His mandibles clicked in what might have been bitter laughter. "I was taken apart. Systematically. Efficiently. Like I was a practice dummy instead of a champion of 17 star systems." Kate pulled over a chair designed for smaller species and sat down. She looked directly into his eyes. "You are taking this personally, do not. What happened out there was not about you being weak or inadequate. It was about something much bigger than you or me." "Then explain it to me," Vexthor said. There was an edge in his voice. "Tell me what I missed. Tell me what I failed to understand in all my years of training, in all my victories, in all my study of combat." Kate leaned forward. Her expression was serious but not unkind. "You said you fought Deathworlders before, and you did. You fought warriors from high-gravity planets, warriors from harsh environments, species that evolved as apex predators. You learned their patterns. You developed counters. You beat them. That is genuinely impressive. She paused, choosing her words carefully. But here is what you did not account for. Most Deathworld species evolved their combat capabilities naturally. They got strong because their world demanded strength. They got fast because being slow meant death. They got tough because anything less was eliminated by natural selection. Their combat ability is biological, instinctive. Vexthor listened, beginning to understand where she was going. Humans did not evolve our combat abilities, Kate continued. We invented them. Earth is not the most dangerous world in the galaxy. We are not the strongest species, not the fastest, not the most naturally armored. We are persistence hunters who got smart enough to realize we did not have to be any of those things to win. She stood and began to pace. The movement seemed unconscious, natural. You know our history. Humans used tools, developed weapons. Not just weapons, Kate said firmly. Systems, methodologies, philosophies. We spent thousands of years not just fighting, but studying how to fight. Every culture on Earth, every continent, every isolated group of people, they all developed their own martial traditions. Then they tested those traditions against each other. They refined them over generations. When we finally unified as a species and reached the stars, we brought all of that accumulated knowledge with us. And you? Vexthor asked. He was genuinely curious now instead of defensive. What is your background? I started training when I was 5 years old, Kate said. Traditional karate first. Added judo when I was 7. Boxing at 10. By 15, I was training in multiple disciplines at the same time. Then military service opened up access to combat programs that synthesized techniques from dozens of different styles. After my service, I sought out masters from every human martial tradition I could find. Then I started studying alien combat forms. She turned back to face him. But here is what really matters. I am not special among humans. Not really. There are millions of us who train like this, who dedicate our lives to understanding combat at this level. Some are better than me. Much better. On Earth, I'm maybe in the top 1,000 martial artists, maybe. Vexthor felt something cold settle in his chest. Not fear exactly, but a new understanding of reality. You were saying that if I had fought any of those other top human fighters, the outcome would have been the same or worse. Probably, Kate admitted honestly. Because we all approach combat the same way. Study, adapt, practice, refine, repeat. It is not about being physically superior. It is about being technically superior. Understanding leverage, timing, body mechanics, neurological vulnerabilities, psychological pressure. Having a solution ready for every problem. She sat back down. Her expression softened a bit. Look, I am not saying this to diminish what you have accomplished. 147 victories is incredible. You are a warrior of tremendous skill and experience. But you approached this fight with wrong assumptions. You thought you were fighting another strong, tough Deathworlder. Instead, you were fighting 10,000 years of accumulated human knowledge about combat. Vexthor sat in silence for a long time. Around them, the medical bay continued its quiet work. Other fighters came and went, being treated for their injuries. Finally, he spoke. What you are describing is more than just combat training. It is a philosophy. An entire cultural approach to conflict, exactly, Kate said. There was approval in her voice. Humans did not just evolve to survive our world. We evolved to study, to learn, to systematize knowledge and pass it down through generations. When we applied that to combat, we created something unique in the galaxy. Not warriors who are naturally superior, but warriors who are systematically trained to counter any advantage an opponent might have. Then why enter this tournament? Vexthor asked. Why expose this capability to the galaxy? It seems like revealing a tactical advantage. Kate smiled. For the first time, Vexthor saw something almost dangerous in that smile. Because humanity is done being underestimated. For too long, other species have looked at us and seen primitive Deathworlders who got lucky with technology. They see our average physical capabilities and dismiss us. This tournament was never about winning a trophy. It was about sending a message to the entire galaxy. And what message is that? Vexthor asked. Though he thought he already knew the answer, Kate's smile faded. Her expression became serious again. That if you fight a human, you are not fighting an individual. You are fighting 10,000 years of accumulated knowledge about how to win. And that is a fight you should think very, very carefully about starting. The weight of her words hung in the air between them. Vexthor realized with absolute clarity that his defeat here would create ripples across the entire galaxy. Every species that had dismissed humanity as merely another strong but unsophisticated race would have to reconsider everything. Every military strategist would have to account for this new variable in their calculations. Every leader would have to rethink their assumptions about human capabilities. "You have changed the game," Vexthor said quietly. "Not just of this tournament, but of how the galaxy views your entire species." Kate nodded slowly. "That was always the plan. Now the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you help us spread the truth, or will you try to hide what happened here today?" Vexthor looked at her for a long moment. Then he straightened up, ignoring the protests from his injured body. "I will tell the truth. My people deserve to know what humans are truly capable of, and perhaps if we are wise we can learn from you instead of fearing you." Kate stood and offered her hand again. This time it was not to help him up from the arena floor. It was a handshake, an agreement between equals. Vexthor took her hand, and in that moment everything changed. 3 days after the fight, Vexthor found himself in a place he never expected to visit. A human training facility on the orbital station above Earth. The invitation had come from Kate herself, delivered with a simple message written in elegant script. "If you want to understand what really happened, come watch us train." The facility was enormous. Section after section stretched out before him, each dedicated to different aspects of combat training. In one area, humans practiced forms that looked like ancient dances, repeating precise movements thousands of times. In another section, they grappled on padded mats flowing smoothly between positions. Yet another area had humans working on heavy bags, throwing combinations with rhythmic precision. But what struck Vexthor most was not the physical training. It was the studying. Everywhere he looked, he saw humans analyzing information. Holographic displays showed fights from across galactic history. Humans studied alien anatomy diagrams discussing vulnerable points and optimal striking angles. They watched recordings of their own techniques, critiquing themselves with brutal honesty. They sparred with training robots programmed to fight like different alien species, testing counters and adaptations in real time. Kate met him at the entrance. She wore simple training clothes and looked completely at home in this environment. "Welcome to the Human Combat Research Institute," she said. "This is just one of dozens of facilities like this one, spread across Earth and all our colony worlds. We have been operating since shortly after we made first contact with the galactic community, about 50 years ago." "Research Institute," Vexthor repeated slowly. "You approach combat as an academic discipline, like science or mathematics." "We approach everything as an academic discipline," a new voice said. An older human male walked over. His hair was gray, but he moved with the same controlled grace that Kate possessed. "I am Gregory Park, director of this facility. Kate told me you are interested in understanding what makes human martial arts unique in the galaxy." "I am interested in understanding how I lost," Vexthor said bluntly, "and what it means for my species and others when facing human opponents in the future." Gregory nodded with approval. "Good. Pride without understanding is worthless. Come with me. Let me show you something important." He led them to a classroom where a dozen humans sat studying holographic projections of Kralix anatomy. "This is an introductory course we started after your species joined the Galactic Council. We study every species we encounter, not because we plan to fight them, but because thoroughness is part of our culture." Vexthor watched as the instructor highlighted various aspects of Kralix physiology. Nerve clusters, joint mechanics, balance points, vulnerable areas. They were not just learning anatomy, they were learning how to fight his species specifically, efficiently, and ethically. It was impressive and unsettling at the same time. "Every species has natural strengths," Gregory continued as they walked through the facility. "Kralix have forearms, enhanced strength, natural armor. Vraxians have incredible speed and reaction times. Thorkins have nearly invulnerable hides. Mandorians have mass and reach advantages. What do humans have?" "Intelligence," Vexthor said immediately. Then he paused. "But so do most spacefaring species." "Intelligence, yes," Gregory agreed. "But more specifically, we have adaptability, pattern recognition, the ability to synthesize information from many different sources, and most importantly, the cultural tradition of sharing and building upon knowledge across generations. Those traits are not unique to humans, But the combination and the degree to which we develop them is unusual in the galaxy. They entered another training area. Here, humans sparred with actual aliens of various species. All wore protective gear. Vexthor recognized a Varaxian exchanging strikes with a human at blurring speeds. A Thorkin grappled with a human barely half its size, yet the human was holding its own through superior technique and strategy. We train with other species, Kate explained. Not to dominate them, but to understand them, to learn from them. Some of our best techniques come from adapting alien martial arts to human physiology. The Varaxian speed strike methodology taught us new timing patterns. Thorkin pressure point techniques showed us vulnerabilities we had not considered before. We take the best from everywhere and make it our own. And then you find ways to counter it, Vexthor said. The full picture was becoming clear now. Not just counter, Gregory corrected gently. Understand there is a crucial difference. Countering is reactive. It means finding a specific answer to a specific threat. Understanding is proactive. It means grasping the principles behind a technique so you can adapt to any variation of it. That is the core of human martial philosophy. Understand the principles, not just memorize the techniques. They stopped at an observation window. Below them, in a specialized training room, a single human fought against multiple opponents simultaneously. The opponents were holographic projections programmed to fight with different alien combat styles. The human flowed between defensive and offensive modes, adapting his response to each opponent in real time. It looked like a deadly dance. That is Daniel Price, Kate said, one of our top combat analysts. He is not the strongest human, not the fastest, definitely not the most naturally gifted athletically, but he has studied more martial arts than anyone else in this facility. 47 different human disciplines, 23 alien combat forms, and he is still learning more every day. Why? Vexthor asked. What drives someone to dedicate their entire life to this level of study? Kate glanced at him. For Daniel, it is pure passion. He loves the art of combat the way some beings love music or mathematics. But for humanity as a whole, it is survival instinct refined into culture. We entered a galaxy full of species that were stronger, faster, and tougher than us. We had two choices. Accept being second tier or find an edge. We chose to make knowledge our edge. Gregory led them to his office. The space was filled with books, both physical and holographic. They covered every aspect of combat theory from across human history and alien species. He poured drinks for all three of them from a cabinet. Vexthor's translator identified the liquid as safe for Kralix consumption. Here is what I want you to understand, Commander, Gregory said as he settled into his chair. What happened in that arena was not personal. Kate did not beat you as an individual. 10,000 years of human martial evolution beat you. She was just the delivery mechanism for all that accumulated knowledge. I understand that now, Vexthor said. What I do not understand is why you are showing me all this. Why explain your methods to someone who might use that knowledge against you? Kate and Gregory exchanged glances. It was Kate who answered. Because we do not want to fight the galaxy, Commander. We want the galaxy to respect us. There is a difference. You thought you understood humans based on limited data. You were wrong, and it cost you. How many other species are making the same mistake right now? The implication was clear. Vexthor thought about his own people's military command, about allies and potential adversaries across the galaxy, all of them making strategic calculations based on incomplete understanding of human capabilities. You are using me, Vexthor said, not with anger, just with understanding. My defeat, my learning process. It is all part of the message you are sending. We are offering you a choice, Gregory corrected. You can be bitter about losing. You can hide from the galaxy. You can pretend it was a fluke or bad luck. Or you can be honest about what happened and help prevent future conflicts that would be born from misunderstanding. Humans are not trying to dominate the galaxy, but we are also completely done being dismissed as inferior simply because we do not have natural weapons or armor. Vexthor looked out the window at the training facility, at humans dedicating themselves to the study of combat with the same intensity that other species brought to science or art. He thought about the broader implications, about humanity's place in the galactic order, about assumptions that needed to be reconsidered across thousands of worlds. I will report this to my superiors, he said finally. They will want to know everything about human combat capabilities. We are counting on it, Kate said with a slight smile. And Commander, when you make that report, make sure they understand one crucial thing. What is that? Everything we have shown you today, Every technique, every training method, every bit of knowledge we have shared. It is just the beginning. Humans never stop learning, never stop adapting, never stop improving. Whatever edge anyone thinks they might gain from studying us, we will be 3 steps ahead by the time they implement it, because that is what we do. We evolve. 6 months had passed since the tournament. The Galactic Council was meeting in the Great Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime, a neutral station that had served as the heart of interstellar diplomacy for 300 years. Representatives from 417 different species filled the tiered seating that rose up in circles around the central speaking floor. The chamber was filled with a symphony of sounds, lights, and electromagnetic signals as different species communicated in their native ways. Translation technology worked constantly to make sense of it all. Vexthor sat in the Kralix delegation section. He was no longer just a champion of the arena. He now held the title of military liaison, a position created specifically to address the changing dynamics of human integration into galactic society. His defeat had given him an unexpected new career. Across the chamber in the relatively new human delegation section sat Ambassador Linda Hayes with a small team of advisors. Kate Sullivan was not visible among them, but Vexthor suspected she was nearby, probably providing security. The debate had been going on for hours. A coalition of species led by the militaristic Drycon Empire had proposed restrictions on human martial training facilities. They argued that such concentrated combat knowledge represented a potential threat to galactic security. The proposal was thinly veiled fear dressed up in the language of peace and stability. The humans themselves admit, the Drakon representative hissed through the translation field. His reptilian form was coiled in an aggressive posture. They have systematically studied how to defeat every species in this chamber. They have mapped our vulnerabilities. They have trained specifically to counter our natural advantages. How is this not preparation for aggression? How is this not a threat to all of us? Murmurs of agreement rippled through certain sections of the assembly. The Drakon had allies, species that had built their power on physical dominance, species that now felt threatened by the revelation that strength alone might not be enough against human opponents. Ambassador Hayes stood to respond. Her movements were measured and calm. The Drakon representative raises concerns that sound valid on the surface, she said. But I believe they come from a fundamental misunderstanding of human philosophy and culture. We do not study combat in order to wage war. We study combat in order to prevent it. There is an ancient human saying, "If you wish for peace, prepare for war." But there is a lesser-known corollary to that saying. Understanding your potential opponent makes conflict less likely, not more likely. Words, the Drakon representative spat out. Just words and excuses. Meanwhile, your species trains warriors who can defeat champions from across the galaxy. You accumulate knowledge of how to hurt, disable, and kill every being in this chamber. And then you ask us to trust you? You ask us to believe you mean us no harm? Vexthor found himself standing before he fully realized he intended to speak. The chamber went quiet. Everyone was curious about what the defeated champion would say. He had credibility on this issue that few others possessed. He had experienced firsthand what human martial knowledge could do. 6 months ago, Vexthor began. His voice carried clearly through the translation matrix. I believed I understood what it meant to be a warrior. I had defeated opponents from 17 different star systems. I had studied combat arts from across the galaxy. I was confident in my abilities. Perhaps I was arrogant. I believed I could face any challenge and win. He paused. Every being in the chamber knew what came next in his story. Then I faced Kate Sullivan. And I learned something crucial about my own ignorance. I had fought a human before, you see. One human from a colony world. And I thought that meant I understood the entire species. I made assumptions based on limited data. Those assumptions nearly cost me permanent injury because I was too proud to submit when I should have. I was educated that day. Educated in the most direct way possible. He turned to face the Drakon delegation directly. You speak of human combat knowledge as a threat. I tell you it is the opposite. It is transparency. The humans have openly demonstrated their capabilities to everyone. They invite observation of their training facilities. They publish their research. They explain their philosophy freely. This is not the behavior of a species preparing for conquest. This is the behavior of a species trying to prevent conflict through mutual understanding. You were defeated, the Drakon representative said. His tone was dismissive. Of course you defend them now. You are simply trying to save face after your humiliating loss. I was educated, Vexthor corrected firmly, and here's what that education taught me. Before my fight with Sullivan, I was actually dangerous. Not because I was skilled, but because I was ignorant. I believed I could easily defeat any human opponent. I was completely confident in that belief. If my species had faced humans in real conflict while I held that belief, we would have suffered catastrophic casualties. We would have sent our warriors into battle against an opponent we did not understand. That ignorance would have cost countless lives. He moved to the center of the speaking floor, addressing the full assembly now. Now I understand what humans are truly capable of. My military command understands. We respect them, not out of fear, but out of genuine appreciation for their approach to combat and conflict. And that respect makes war between our species less likely, not more likely. We will never make the mistake of thinking a conflict with humanity would be easy or quick. That knowledge prevents foolish decisions. It saves lives. A Vraxian elder, highly respected for wisdom across multiple species, activated their speaking crystal. The device glowed softly as it converted thought into sound. The Kralix liaison makes a compelling point, but it raises a deeper question that must be addressed. If human combat knowledge truly is about prevention and understanding, then why develop such sophisticated ability to harm others in the first place? Why become so skilled at violence? Ambassador Hayes nodded respectfully to the Vraxian elder. That is exactly the right question to ask, and it deserves an honest answer. Humans developed our martial traditions not out of choice, but out of necessity. Our planet is not the harshest world in the galaxy, but it has produced an enormous diversity of threats. For most of our history, we had no unified government. We had no global peace. We fought each other constantly. Tribe against tribe, nation against nation, ideology against ideology. We fought for thousands of years before we learned to stop. She walked slowly around the speaking floor as she continued. Her voice remained calm but passionate. Every conflict taught us something. Every war forced us to innovate. And unlike species that evolved natural weapons, we could not rely on claws or armor or venom. We had to think our way through combat. We had to study it. We had to systematize it. We turned it into both an art and a science. By the time we finally achieved global unity and reached the stars, we had accumulated thousands of years of knowledge about combat. We could not just erase that knowledge. It is part of our cultural heritage. And you brought that knowledge with you into space, a Mandorian representative rumbled. His voice was deep like distant thunder. You could have left it behind on your world. You could have chosen peace over preparation for war, could we? Hayes challenged gently, but her eyes were sharp. We entered a galaxy where physical might often determines political power, where trade disputes are sometimes settled by ritual combat, where species judge each other partially based on martial capabilities. Should we have made ourselves deliberately vulnerable just to prove our peaceful intentions? Should we have arrived helpless and hoped for the best? She let the question hang in the air for a moment before continuing. Instead, we chose a different path. We kept our knowledge, but we opened it up. We train with other species. We share techniques. We explain our methods. We have offered to train allied species in human martial arts, adapted specifically for their physiology. We are not hoarding knowledge as a weapon. We are treating it as a bridge to mutual understanding. Vexthor spoke up again. I can confirm this from personal experience. The Kralix military has begun a formal exchange program with human combat instructors. They are teaching us not just techniques but philosophy, how to assess opponents fairly, how to use the minimum necessary force, how to end conflicts quickly and with minimal injury to all involved. This is not the behavior of a conquering species planning invasion. This is the behavior of teachers sharing wisdom. The Drakon representative remained unmoved. Pretty words. Cultural exchanges. None of this changes the fundamental reality. Humans have made themselves into living weapons. Now they sit among us, studying our weaknesses, learning how to defeat us. We would be fools to trust them simply because they smile while they do it. Then do not trust us, a new voice said. Kate Sullivan had entered the chamber. Somehow she had obtained speaking privileges. She walked to the center of the floor with that same controlled movement Vexthor remembered from the arena. Do not trust humans out of blind faith. That would be foolish. Instead, trust us because we have given you every reason to understand exactly what we are capable of. Trust us because we fight in the open. in sanctioned tournaments under agreed rules with observers from every species watching. Trust us because when we have an advantage, we share the knowledge rather than exploit it for dominance. The observation deck of Nexus Prime Station offered a view that never failed to inspire awe. Through the transparent aluminum walls, space stretched out in all directions, filled with stars and distant galaxies. Ships of every size and design moved through the space lanes, carrying cargo and passengers between worlds. It was a testament to what different species could achieve when they worked together instead of fought. Kate and Vexthor stood at the railing, looking out at this view. The Galactic Council meeting had ended hours ago, but neither of them seemed ready to leave yet. There was still more to say, more to understand. What happens now? Vexthor asked, breaking the comfortable silence. You have won the respect your species sought. You have secured your place in the galactic community. What is the next step for humanity? Kate smiled. In that expression, Vexthor saw not arrogance but determination tempered with wisdom. Now we do what humans have always done throughout our history. We learn, we adapt, we grow. We study this galaxy and everyone in it, not to conquer them but to understand them. We take the best ideas from every species we meet and synthesize them into something new. And we share what we learn because that is how you build a civilization that lasts for centuries instead of decades. You really believe that knowledge prevents conflict, Vexthor said. It was not a question. He had seen enough evidence to know it was true. I know it does, Kate replied firmly. You and I are living proof of that principle. 6 months ago, you thought you understood humans based on fighting one colonist. You were wrong. And it would have been dangerous if that misunderstanding had existed at a species level during a real military conflict. Thousands or millions could have died because of that ignorance. Now you know what we are truly capable of. You respect it. You understand it. And because of that respect and understanding, the likelihood of conflict between our peoples has dropped dramatically. Knowledge saved lives that were never put at risk because the conflict never happened. She turned to face him directly. That is what we are trying to do for the entire galaxy, not through intimidation or shows of overwhelming force, but through demonstration and education. We want every species to understand what humans bring to the galactic community, our strengths and our limitations, our capabilities and our values. We want them to respect us not out of fear, but out of genuine appreciation for what we can contribute to the greater good. Vexthor looked out at the stars again. He was processing everything he had learned over the past 6 months. His journey from arrogant champion to humbled student, to genuine advocate for human integration into galactic society. The path had been uncomfortable and had challenged every assumption he held. But it had also been enlightening in ways he could not have predicted. You know what the irony is? He said finally, a hint of amusement in his voice. I fought Deathworlders before you. I learned how to beat them through pattern recognition and adaptation. I studied their tendencies and developed counters. I thought I was being sophisticated and strategic. Then I met you and realized that humans had already perfected that exact approach. You had taken it to levels I had not imagined were possible. In trying to counter Deathworld warriors, I had actually adopted the most human strategy there is. I just did not realize it until someone who had been practicing that strategy their entire life beat me with it. Kate laughed. It was a genuine sound of amusement and appreciation. That is actually a perfect summary of human martial arts and human philosophy in general. We do not invent techniques out of nowhere, or claim they came from divine inspiration. We find what works from anywhere and everywhere we can. We adapt it to our needs. We refine it through practice and testing. We make it our own through synthesis. You were already thinking like a human warrior, Commander. You just had not met one who had been doing it since childhood, and who had the accumulated knowledge of thousands of years behind them. Will you fight in the tournament again? Vexthor asked. You could easily defend your title. No one in the galaxy would bet against you now. Maybe someday, Kate said thoughtfully, but the tournament served its purpose. We proved what needed to be proven to the galaxy. Now there is more important work to do, training programs to establish with dozens of species, cultural exchanges to organize, research to conduct into combat forms we have not yet studied. The galaxy is vast and full of species we have not met yet, combat traditions we have not learned from. There is always more to discover. Always room to grow and improve. That is very human, Vexthor observed with a hint of admiration. Never satisfied with current achievements, always seeking the next challenge. The next lesson, the next level of understanding. Guilty as charged, Kate admitted with a grin. It is probably the same fundamental drive that made our ancestors leave their caves and eventually leave their planet. We are curious to a fault. We want to understand everything, learn everything, experience everything. When we apply that drive to combat, it becomes martial arts. When we apply it to exploration, it becomes our space program. When we apply it to diplomacy, it becomes, well, this. She gestured to the station around them and the galaxy beyond. Humans are not trying to conquer the stars, she continued. We are trying to understand them. And we are inviting everyone else to understand us in return. That is the real lesson from our fight 6 months ago. Not that humans are superior fighters to everyone else, but that we are dedicated students. Students of combat, of culture, of each other. And good students eventually become good teachers. Vexthor nodded slowly. It was a gesture he had picked up from spending time with humans. I'm glad I lost that fight. Not just because it humbled me, though I clearly needed that, but because it opened my eyes to a completely different way of approaching the concept of strength. Not as something you are born with or evolve naturally over millions of years, but as something you consciously cultivate through dedication, study, and hard work over a lifetime. That might be the most important lesson of all, Kate said quietly. Her voice was serious now. Strength is not destiny written in your genes. It is a choice you make every day. It is a commitment you honor through action. It is a journey that never truly ends because there is always someone better. Always something new to learn. Always room for improvement. Every human martial artist understands this truth in their bones. We are not strong simply because we are human. We are strong because we choose to be strong, and we work at it every single day of our lives. They stood together in companionable silence for several minutes. A Kralix warrior and a human fighter. Former opponents who had become something like friends, looking out at a galaxy that was slowly learning to see humans not as a curiosity or a potential threat, but as valuable partners in the great shared endeavor of building a peaceful and prosperous interstellar civilization. Somewhere far below them on Earth, another generation of human martial artists was beginning their journey right now. Children starting their first classes, learning basic stances and simple strikes. They would study the techniques of countless human cultures and multiple alien species. They would learn not just how to fight, but why to fight and when fighting was not necessary at all. They would carry forward thousands of years of accumulated knowledge. They would add their own discoveries and innovations to that knowledge base, and they would pass it all on to the next generation in an unbroken chain stretching back to humanity's earliest days and forward to an unknown future. And in that eternal cycle of learning, teaching and growth, humanity had discovered its truest strength, not the ability to defeat any opponent through superior force, but the wisdom to understand opponents well enough that fighting became unnecessary, the humility to keep learning from everyone they met, the generosity to share knowledge freely instead of hoarding it as a weapon. The galaxy would never again make the mistake of underestimating humanity based on surface appearance or initial impressions. That lesson had been taught clearly and would be remembered for generations. But more importantly, humans had proven through their actions that strength tempered by wisdom, power balanced by restraint, and confidence paired with genuine humility could earn something far more valuable than dominance or fear. They had earned respect, true respect based on understanding and appreciation. And with that respect came something even more precious, a true place among the stars, not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals, as partners, as teachers and students both, as members of a galactic community that was stronger because of the diversity of perspectives and capabilities that each species brought to the whole. Vexthor looked at Kate one more time. Thank you, he said simply, for the lesson, for the honesty, for treating me with respect even in defeat. Kate smiled and placed a hand on his massive shoulder. Thank you for being willing to learn, for having the courage to admit you were wrong, for helping to bridge the gap between our peoples. The galaxy needs more beings like you, Commander. Beings who value truth over pride and understanding over ego. They walked together back into the station, back to their duties and responsibilities. But both of them knew that something fundamental had changed. Not just in their relationship with each other, but in the relationship between their entire species. And through them, in the relationships between